Welcome, 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 everyone. It's me, Tanya, your girl with all things Dazzle. How are you today? I just wanted to come on and hopefully go through a really quick video on how you can take some generated image that, is a font and recreate that using Silhouette Studio. So not using a system font on your computer, but something that was generated elsewhere, whether it be from ChatGPT or some other AI generated type image, and just show you how you can use some of the tools in Silhouette Studio to achieve your rhinestone design. So thank you for being here. As you guys know, those of you who've been around with me for a while, I am very impromptu. I'm just very informal. I'm here to just show you what it is that I know, and hopefully that will help you on your journey as you're learning how to create rhinestone templates for yourself. So again, if you're a current subscriber of mine, thank you. Welcome back. If you're a brand new subscriber, I'm so glad you're here. I hope that my tutorials will be helpful and useful to you. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me. I try to be very proactive and respond to comments as I see them on my videos. So again, liking, giving those giving thumbs up, subscribing really helps my channel and gives me the encouragement to continue to to keep creating content for you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. Again, I use Silhouette Studio and I have the upgrade business edition upgrade that allows me to be able to work in the rhinestone panel. So if you want to work in the rhinestone panel, then you will also need to upgrade your subscription to the business edition. Now, let me see. Okay. Now that is interesting. Okay, here we go. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to take this text or this graphic right here. As you can see, it is a JPEG or a PNG graphic because of the white background. And it is the name Worthington. I was asked to create a rhinestone template for this. And below is my finished product. Okay, so we're going to go from the graphic to the completed rhinestone template that you see here at the bottom. So stay tuned. Let me move these things out of the way. Okay. So first of all, we have our graphic. Okay. And the first thing we need to do is we need to trace this image so that we get the vector line art for the to work with in the rhinestone panel. So I'm going to go over here to the right hand side of my screen, okay, and I'm going to open up the trace panel. For me, I'm using the interface 5.0 for Silhouette Studio, and that icon is the fourth icon from the top. It looks like a little butterfly wing is what it looks like to me. But again, when you hover over it, it says open the trace panel. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, and there's several options in there. There's select trace area, there's trace by color, and magnet trace. Okay, we're going to do just select trace area for this one. We could do trace by color, but because it's just a simple black and white graphic, I'm just going to do the select trace area. So I'm going to click on that. When I click on it, you can see that my cursor then turns to a pair of crosshairs. I'm going to just find some empty space on the screen above my graphic. I'm going to click with my mouse. So I'm going to left click with my mouse and just drag out a box around the entire word Worthington. Okay, I'm going to release my mouse. And when I do, once the trace is successful, all of the area that I'm looking to trace should be filled in yellow. Okay, the standard default threshold for Silhouette Studio is about 45%, which typically will give you a pretty decent and clean trace. So I'm going to leave the threshold there because all of the area that I want to work with has been filled in with yellow. And then I'm going to go ahead down here under this advanced tab and I'm going to click trace. Okay, so I'm going to click trace. And once we click trace, the yellow goes away. And what we're left with, once we move the graphic out of the way, so I'm going to just click and drag, okay, move that over there to the side. So what we're left with is the line art image from our trace, which is what we need to work with in the rhinestone panel, okay? So one of the first things I like to do when I'm working with rhinestones is I want to just see whether or not what I have, if it will convert into rhinestones well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, I've got my graphic selected, and we know it's selected because there is a box around the graphic. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to X out of the trace panel, and I'm going to open up the rhinestone panel. Okay, now you can find the rhinestone icon over here on the right-hand side of your panel. It's located down towards the bottom, okay? And for me, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth icon from the bottom. The fifth icon from the bottom looks like a jewel of some sort, okay? When you hover over it, it says open the rhinestone panel. If for some reason you cannot locate that icon on the right-hand side of your screen, if you come up here to the very top of the window, the top of your screen, where you have your main toolbars, you have your file, edit, view, and panels, object, help. Click on panels, okay? You click on panels and you can scroll down to the bottom and open up the rhinestone panel, okay? So I'm gonna open up the rhinestone panel and there are 4 effects. Well, typically they're not 4, there are 4 effects actually, okay? So there's none, which is what we're currently on right now. There's no rhinestone effect turned on. We have our edge fill, which is this very first icon, okay? It just puts rhinestones on the edge. Then you have your linear fill, okay? Your linear fill pattern gives you a pattern where your stones line up in a linear fashion. And then you have your radial fill, which is typically used when you have items that have curves in them and you want to maintain the curves. Okay, so I'm just going to select one of the options. I'm going to select the edge fill, okay, and just see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. So this is what it currently looks like when I turn on the edge fill. It is set up for SS10, and we know we have SS10 because the SS10 or 10SS button is highlighted. Okay, we can toggle between those. We can see what it looks like if we choose the 6SS stone. Okay, that's starting to look a little bit better. The holes are smaller, stones are smaller, so we get better definition at the size that we currently have our design set for, which is about 10 inches wide. And then of course we have our 16 and our 20, okay? But we're not going to use those. We're going to try and work with SS, the 10SS stone. So I'm gonna go back to 10SS, okay? Underneath that, we have our spacing. The spacing here is the distance between the holes, okay? So this is the amount of space in between the holes, and the default in Silhouette Studio is 0.39. I like to start my spacing at 0.20. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click in this box, and I'm just going to type in 0.20 and hit enter. Okay, and see what that looks like. So now we're getting a little bit more definition, then we can start seeing the word Worthington. I'm going to go ahead and give these stones a color so that it makes it easier to see. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn them to yellow, and or maybe and then I'm going to go back into the rhinestone panel. Okay, so we have our spacing set at 20. Right now we're showing here at the bottom, it tells us how many rhinestones are showing up in this design, and we are currently at 383. Okay. But I don't like how this looks. Okay. This doesn't look very well at the 10.103 inches. And because I'm going to the customers asked for this to go onto a standard size shirt, I'm going to try to keep the design between 9.5 and 10 inches in width. Okay. So I'm going to scale it down just a little bit. Okay. And just bring it down, let's say 9.531. Okay, so that's currently where we are, 9.531. And this is what it looks like in the edge fill. Okay, but let's see what happens when we look at it from the linear fill. Okay, because the linear fill then sets our stones up to go into in a line fashion. So let's see what happens. We're going to click on that. Okay. When we go to the linear fill, we get a much better defined looking setup with our holes. That is very legible, and it would require us to do very minimal amount of cleanup. Okay, so this is what it looks like in the linear fill. And let's just see what happens if we look at it in radial. Okay, so I'm going to click on the radial fill icon. And the radial fill icon is very similar to what you see when you use the edge fill. The only difference is that the radial fill will fill in any areas or spaces that it thinks that it can with stones, whereas the edge fill will only give you the stones on the edge of the outline. Okay, so having looked at all three of these fill patterns, I think we're going to go with the linear fill for this one. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the original graphic to help me with my cleanup. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to bring that graphic, okay, that we used earlier to create the trace. And I'm going to bring it back and I'm just going to use it behind the stones, okay, or behind these holes. And I forgot that I shrunk down the design a little bit, so I need to try and find a happy place for these stones. So I'm just I'm using the graphic as a template to help me with the manual placement of the rhinestones in order to achieve the font so that it looks like the font that we originally started with. So I think that's pretty good. I think I have it sized down pretty well. Let's see. It's not 100%, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Next time we'll make sure to not resize the design or resize the trace without resizing the design if we're going to be using that as a template. But this is pretty good. So I'm going to, now that I have this in place, I'm going to click on the stones, okay? And we know that we have the stone selected because I've changed the color to yellow. And if you look up here in the top corner of your screen, underneath your home icon, you see this color here, right? This is the color palette. And you can change colors from here if you like. You can also use the icon over here on the right-hand side of your screen. But over here, we see that it has turned yellow, and that lets us know that what we have selected is the image on top, and that's the one that we're working with, okay? So I'm going to come over here to our rhinestone panel, and I'm going to go ahead and release the rhinestones, okay? Because now what I want to do is I want to make the manual edits to the stones to fill out this shape, okay? So I'm going to release the rhinestones. And once we release the rhinestones, now there is a box. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see. Okay, you see there is a box around all of the holes that were created from the when we turned on the when we created the linear fill for this design. So now we can edit each individual circle, and we can add circles as needed, or we can delete circles as needed. So I'm going to keep this behind. Like I said, I'm going to keep the graphic from behind, and I'm going to work with the image, and the stones are on top. So it should be fairly easy for me to select those stones. So I'm just going to start moving. I'm just going to start doing my manual edits. I'm going to move this stone here. Okay. And you can use the image and the outline to help you line up your stones. I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit more. All right. And I'm just going to move these stones. Okay. I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I maintain sufficient spacing between the holes so that when we go to cut this template, the spacing is not too tight. Okay, so that we don't tear our flock. But I'm just going to start moving these stones. Okay, so I'm going to just move them into position one by one. And I am now going to start adding some stones so that I can fill in this space here. You can do this two ways. Okay, you can put your cursor on the mouse. You can right click with your mouse, okay, and click duplicate, and that will duplicate a circle for you, okay, and then you can manually place it where you want it to go. Or you can click on your circle. As you can see, there's a box around it, so it is selected. Right now, my cursor looks like a pointed finger when I'm hovered over that circle. If I hold down the Alt key on my laptop, okay, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, the Alt key. When I do that, you can see that my mouse now turns to a plus sign with a little arrow. I can then click and left click with my mouse and drag out another circle. Okay, so there's two ways that you can add circles to your image. Okay, so I'm going to just drag out a few more circles. Okay, you can decide whether or not you want to keep these two here, or if you want to get rid of it. I think I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, so I'm just going to drag that one off to the side for right now, and then I'm going to just move this one where I want it to go. If I wanted to move several stones at one time, like I think I want to move these over a little bit, I can click and then hold down my shift key and select the stones that I now want to move. Okay, so I click those. While all of those are selected, I'm going to just use my arrow key and just arrow over to the left to move those stones where I want them to go. Okay. Now I can also use my mouse and move those stones where I want them to go. Okay. So we're just going to keep lining these up. Again, we have these two stones here at the bottom. I think I'm just going to try to line them up a little bit better. Okay, try to keep that shape here. I gotta move this one out of the way, maybe move this one down a little. And then I'm going to try to I'm gonna try to fit that stone back into that spot. So then I'm just gonna make some manual adjustments along this W so that I can stick this stone or this hole into that space. So let's see if we can get that to fill in. Okay, again, I'm using the image and the outline of the graphic as a placement tool and using the edges to line up my circles so that my design will be straight or as straight as possible. Okay, so now we've got that W all done. Okay, and basically we would do that throughout the entire design. Okay, so now here we are with the O. I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to add a few circles. Okay, because this one doesn't need a whole lot. And try to see if we can squeeze one more circle in there. Now the manual cleanup work can be a little tedious, but this is where you can refine areas of your design that don't necessarily convert well through the software. You can use these manual editing tools to help clean up your design. So there's our O. Okay, so here in the R, the software tried to place stones where it thought they would fit. Because this stroke here is very narrow, it didn't place a stone there, but we're going to try to see if we can fit one in there. We're going to fit one in there anyway, okay, because we want to keep that R shape. So I'm just going to kind of shift that like that, maybe move that over there, and we'll see what that looks like when we move the graphic from behind. We'll see what we're left with, and then we can just determine what additional edits we might want to make. But for now, we're just going to line up those stones, okay? So here we are in this T. I'm just going to move this one over here to try to round out that loop at the bottom, okay? Here in the H, we're just going to, again, we're just going to kind of straighten these up a little. I think we can probably get another stone in there once we finish manually moving these. You can also use your arrow keys on your laptop to make more incremental moves. Okay, so your movements are a little bit more precise when you use the arrow keys rather than using your mouse, but whichever you're most comfortable with. I use a combination of both depending on what it is I'm trying to do. Okay. All right, there's the H. We're going to go with the I. I don't think we need to have two, even though the software said that this space was big enough that it looked like it could use two holes. We're just going to stick with the one. And just going to clean up this I. Oops, I accidentally moved the template. You have to be careful. Otherwise, you'll do just what I did. But then you just use your undo as your keys up here at the top. Okay, this one right here, this is your undo, and the one right next to it is your redo. Okay, so undo or going back are your best friends whenever you're making changes to something. If you don't like what you changed, you can go back and just undo. So now we're working with the N. Again, I'm just trying to clean this up a little. Trying to stay very mindful not to create either too much or too little space in between our stones. We want to try to keep that alignment and that symmetry of the design as best we can. Okay, so now we have the N is done. We're almost done with this design. Okay, we're going to work on this G real quick. I'm going to shift these up. I'm gonna bring over this extra stone. We're gonna try to bring that over in here. And then we're gonna work out this loop in here. Okay. If you wanted to use the equal spacing tool, okay, to get equal spacing between your rhinestones or between your holes, okay, you can use the equal spacing tool. I'll show you how you do that in just a second when I line these up. Okay, I'm gonna try to get another hole. I can actually show you, I'm gonna add a stone. Okay, so I'm just gonna hold my Alt key and just drag out a stone. Okay, I know that it's not spaced properly, but I want to show you how you use the equal spacing key. So if we come over here on the right-hand side of the screen and we go down to the fifth icon from the top, okay, that is the transform panel. Okay, that is where you will find your alignment tools. Okay, and what we're looking for is down here at the bottom. We see it says distribute. We have distribute vertically and we have distribute horizontally, which is the first icon, and distribute vertically, which is the second one. And right now they're both grayed out, meaning that you can't use them because there's nothing, the software doesn't see anything that it needs to distribute evenly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here to my G. Okay, I'm going to click on this first stone. And what the equal spacing tool does is it creates equal space between your objects from your starting point to your ending point. Okay, so whichever one you start with and whichever one you end with is where it will create that equal space. So I'm going to start with this one at the top. Okay, and I'm going to position it where I want it to go. And then I'm going to hold my shift key and I'm going to click all of the other circles that I want to be evenly spaced. I'm going to start with that. And then if you look at the transform panel, you see where the distribute is now no longer grayed out. And I'm going to click the space vertical. Okay. And if you notice when I did that, it shifted those stones and created that equal space between each of those holes. Okay. So that is how you can use your equal spacing between your holes. Either you can do it horizontally, you can do it vertically. I have several tutorials out there where I'm using these tools. Then depending on what it is you're working with and how you're using them will determine how they line up. But this one, we just wanted to create some vertical spacing in between the stones that was equal. So now that I have that, I'm just going to let's go ahead and keep cleaning this up. Okay, so there's the G. You have the T. Don't have to make many changes there. That looks pretty good. We're going to come back and do the same thing we did before with the O. We're going to add just a few stones. Okay, so we've got some stones added there. And last but not least, we're going to do this N. And then we're going to come back. We're going to move the graphic from behind and see what we were left with and how this looks. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. Yeah, this one little stone right here. I don't think we'll need them. So I'm going to delete it. And we'll just grab that graphic from behind. Okay, so I'm going to click on it and drag it out of the way. And this is what we're left with. Okay, so I'm just going to turn those a different color. Hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to see. But there we are. Okay, so here is our original graphic, and here is our rhinestone template for this font using the graphic as a template and manually placing stones where the rhinestone panel didn't give us those stones in the area to fill out the remaining parts of it. So this is a way, this is a really quick way, well, not very quick, but this is a way that you can use your the software to help you to create text that you're trying to recreate as closely as possible. This is one way that you can do that. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you will try it. And if you have any questions, again, leave them in the comments. Until the next time, thank you for watching.